Waking in Ward 10 West. Neve laid her hand on my arm in the dark. "Barry, it's Neve. I'm a nurse. I work here." In the dark, Neve laid her hand on my arm. Yoga on the beach. A short walk to the shore to mark the start of day, to bin our bottles, pick our place. The picnic rug, the spreadsheets spread on the sand, a shoulder stand, a headstand, a cat, a cobra, a down-facing dog, stretch a leg on a log, turn and make a plank, stand, and now a tree. Sorry! An apology? On a beach? Gesture rare anywhere. Delivered with grace. No, doesn't happen any place. But the handsome man who didn't clean up his dog's poo on the sand, chastised by you, came back and did what you said he should do. A woman mad, completely unstressed, enters the ocean, fully dressed. Another, really just as mad, shouts into her phone. Her notion is to outperform the ocean, its constant rush and push. She should just learn to shush. White man in black budgies, undressed by his wife. He's taken this plunge each day of his life. Druggy walk guy kicks a tennis ball far to the woman with challenged look. Does she live with him in a car? A woman walks past, always in pink. A body lies flat, an ambulance call. Such stuff could make you think. The beach accepts it all. To wade in. We sought for words to say where sea meets land, foreshore and beach, also littoral, strand, waterfront, shoreline, estuary, coast. But these aren't the kind of words I like most. Where ocean and earth meet sky to embrace, that's an ambiguous, mystical place. Tides, sun and moon tugged, have spring and have neap. Words like fonder and founder and steep. Words like buckle and cleave, strange, stroke and spare, are words to wade in, like kind, mind and care. Samson, Wiremu, Delll. Samson, son, grandson, great-grandson. Still so new, this sounds all strange. And who are you, Samson? I have photos of your feet and hands. You can count on them, no doubt. I note your nose, your eyes, they open and close. A fine head of hair already there, a generous lip. You're well equipped for life. Already you bind and find families, even across seas. But who are you? Let's play a game with your name, Samson, Wiremu, Delll. How confident are you about the answers you might give? Am so sure, mind well. How would you describe yourself at present? Small drum. I wee sun. Can you expand on that? Dream sun, will muse. That sounds kinda spiritual. Me slim wonder soul. How about your intellectual development? Mon, we'll read sums. Sounds as if there's some Scottish there. El solid answer, mum. Some Spanish too. Now for a cricket question. How would you describe your future bowling style? Medium and real slow. Your horoscope says you could have a bit of a temper. Any comments? Me win louder slam. Anything else you'd like to tell us? Am mules wind loser? I don't understand. Could you make that clearer? Am round wise smell. Intimations of Mortality. We slipped on the ice at Auschwitz, 2015 and 15 below. Just a bump. We picked ourselves up. But 70 years ago. Your head cracked the floor in King's Place. We were there for Fawkes's talk. The pity pats forced you into a faint. Book-loving medics brought you back. The call from Lau was alarming. You were on your way to St. Vincent's. I'm fine, I heard you proclaim, sitting up in the back of an ambulance. Satish and his dad snipped my colon, saving me from the reaper's scythe. Lengthened my life, but shortened my temper. Such stuff we had never surmised. Dr. Sparks startled your heart, taught it to beat in time. Now it pumps right through the wide open day and all through the snore-free night. These are little incidents in our lives that were hints of mortality. The first one, we visited Auschwitz in Poland, and we did slip over on the ice. Elizabeth suffered from something we called the pity pats, and we were there for a talk by Sebastian Faulks, the novelist, and she attempted to leave the hall but fell over and cracked her head on this wonderful floor in King's Place. And immediately there were 5 people at least who were medics or medically trained or doctors who were within reaching distance and revived her. The third one was when Liz was giving a talk and she collapsed in the middle of the talk and an ambulance was called.
What was the talk on?
It was, I can't remember what it was on.
In Lao?
No, Lau was the person who made the call. He was a person who worked at either care or I think it was the Mary. What was her name?
Mary Stopes.
Mary Stopes.
Oh,
yeah, I think it was someone who worked for Mary Stopes. So he gave me a call, and all I heard was that Elizabeth was on her way to St. Vincent's.
Gosh.
And so when I got there, she was already sitting up in the back of the ambulance. And then I had bowel cancer, and I got operated on by this Indian doctor called Satish, whose father was also a doctor and came and helped him with the operation and also saw to my aftercare. So that was good. And Elizabeth has a condition called atrial fibrillation, and you can at least partially cure it by an electrical operation. And the doctor's name was Dr. Sparks, and he carried out the operation. And one of the side effects of it was that not only did Elizabeth's heart beat properly, she stopped snoring.
Oh, really?
So that explains the last bit there.
Okay.
So you can leave that
Yeah.
if you like.
Thanks.
Okay. Paradise. Clive's divine guidance led us through Dante's great cantos. Now we are in paradise. Unreal light shines from the lines, but can't match the dawn we catch on the beach at Port D. We are yoked by our yoga to sun, sea and sand. Trees touch the air and salt tickles our nostrils. Now a big thought comes to my brain. Beatrice's beauty's theologically based. You have a bossy bottom. That's better. This one's based on a reading we were doing of the Divine Comedy by Dante as translated by the Australian Clive James. Song of the Sun. Look at me. The clouds are just my supporting cast. I dramatise daybreak, and just before dark I leave the stage with a burgundy blush. Don't talk to me about daily bread. I make the day. I am a furnace. I know what hot is. Feel my raging heat, my burning self. I love myself, and you too. I know this is true. Song of the Sand. You feel me beneath bare feet. My support you take for granted. Everyone walks over me. I am, however, a haven for crabs, and I deliver the occasional stinger. Young children build castles, their fingers in my flesh. I don't mind. Someone writes a message on my skin. Happy to be of service. I lie beneath the sky and the sea and all the bodies. I feel the sun's heat and the coolness of the tide. I'm fine. I'm fine. Song of the Ocean. I am the spacious ocean. I ask you to hush, hush. My mission is patience. I practice persistence. How many times do I wash the shore? I do it unceasingly, day and night. How many times do I stretch out to caress the land? I practice persistence. What is my reward? I feel the sun's warmth on my cold breast in the morning. Song of the Air. No, you don't notice me. I might whisper a message. Hist, here, over here. I'm cool and detached much of the time. But I feel, no one knows how I feel. I'm the one who's aware of everything. All relating, all communicating requires my touch. Try to see things from my point of view. I know what is true. The Taming of Baz. He was a pleasant fellow, innocent and free. He liked to read a poem, have a cup of tea. He liked to hit a golf ball. He practiced long and often. But when he met Elizabeth, his brain began to soften. She swept him off to London, that subtle, cunning witch. She knew that she could do it. She was sure to flick his switch. To make him change from having such a lovely life into a man who now became her darling little wife. He used to think of sports. He enjoyed a little drink. But now he thinks of ironing and scrubbing at the sink. Now he thinks of washing and shopping lists and stuff. His life has gone from easy to really rather rough. Do we walk as Virgil and Dante do? You charge forward, but then check I'm not lost. Only briefly do one and one make two. And here's hell if a road has to be crossed. It's easier travelling in a train. Your panic subsides, searched for seats are found. Side by side, facing forward, there is no strain. Together now, two singles, somewhere bound. Let's read this together, these lines by Clive, learning with Dante and Virgil his guide. We're much more than lucky to be alive. Let's burnish our love. It can't be denied. Sonnet. Shall I compare thee to this summer's rain? Thou art more relentless, more persistent. Though sunny intervals may briefly rain, thy critic's voice is ever insistent. Of a sudden the rain falls from the sky, and oft the umbrella needs to be raised. But at least it keeps one safe and dry, a bit like occasionally being praised. Yet thy great programme is never deferred, never loses sight of its KPIs. E'en your death could not save me from your word. My reform eternally is your prize. So long as I can breathe or feel sharp pain, I will hear you calling me in my brain. Mind the gap. When you travel on the tube, you enter a world of silence. No one speaks about the underground odour, the stale, sour smell, for no one speaks, except a bodiless voice. There is a good service on the Northern Line. Stand clear, mind the gap. We travel in silence. Now we hear an awful announcement. There will be a delay due to a body under a train. No one speaks. In the early morning, even school kids say nothing. Everyone sits with their tube-blank faces, safely plugged into their own chosen sound. Still as in sleep, delaying the day's loud bustling embrace. Silence is restful. Silence now. Silence then. Silence. Silence. What's happening to me, Barry? My father was lying on a bed in Somerset House, Trentham. At one end of the village, the elderly residents live independently. At the other, medical assistance is on hand. That's the end where Dad was. He had pancreatic cancer. I'd done some research. It's one of the deadlier forms of cancer. The cancer takes two forms, depending on which end of the pancreas is affected. He had the more deadly form. You've got pancreatic cancer, Dad. You're dying. Silence. For long periods there was no speech between us. Once, when I was young, he had to come to Wellington to get me from the police station. I'd got drunk. I'd tried to open a car door so I could lie down. I'd been arrested for interfering with a car. The train journey home was a long silence. On the bed, Dad's head moved a little. It seemed he was looking at something. "It's not so bad over there," he said. I used to hunt for things in my parents' bedroom. I'd look at the books Dad was reading, find the dirty bits in Peyton Place, I opened a drawer. A diary, just one of those little ones. A brief entry. Went out with Gwen. Am very much in love. The sky is your thought. Saul Bellow. The sky was bruised by sunrise. Now the clouds are silk. But cobblestones those clouds become, with lemon light between. At the window in the guest room, our old bedroom, looking west to scope the weather, finding bison and bodies sculpted, Greek, in the building black and white in the west. The friendly fume and heat of tea, a slice of buttered loaf, nut and date this buttered loaf, an afternoon in bed, the Odyssey read. The moon, when full, seeks my sight, peering through the skylight, bold, above the chimney, clear and bright, and round and white and cold. Poem for Jean on her 94th birthday. Now's the time to praise our matriarch, Jean. She could be compared to our monarch, the Queen. They manage their lives with skill and with grace, and both these fine women, they know their place. They faced the Depression, they lived through the war. They both learned rules we don't know any more. But the point of compare, that is simply the best. They're both over 90 and very well dressed. When Jean dresses up, it's not done by half. She always looks great in her blouse and silk scarf, jacket and handbag, skirt, belt and shoes, topped with a hat, all in autumnal hues. She scooped all the fashion awards at the races. In sartorial contests, Jean holds all the aces. She could pine for Pinehaven or Paradise Point, but the orchards at Templestowe's now her new joint. At arranging a room, she's very able. That silver dish there on mother's table, mirror and telly and grandmother clock, a painting by Jean, Michelle on a rock. Family, harbour, and home 404 give memories room, an open door. She's grandchildren 6 and great-grandkids 9. She stands at the head of a fine family line. She's the one in the family we all hold in awe. On 15 November, she's 94. Jean's well connected. She likes a good show. She turns on Foxtel for tennis and Poirot. Her iPad informs her of family and stuff. She gets lots of news, sometimes more than enough. On matters of principle, she'll never budge. She's kept up high standards in smocking and fudge. Time, as we age, ticks quicker for us all. Just ask that grandmother clock on the wall. Some people could claim 94's a good score, but birthdays come round, there'll be many more. Now let's all look on to 2023. The Queen's message says, Jean, you're rather like me. Sestina. All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. Algernon in The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. At cocktails, Chas chanced to remark, "You're like your mother. But look at her life. Not much like yours." He meant to say, "You look like your mother. But is it so plain? Agreed, you've her slim body shape. But puzzles remain for these lines to solve. Let's now explore with great resolve the ramifications of this remark. To give our thoughts effective shape, we will need to bring both your and Jean's life to the front of our thoughts, make plain, in pattern of lines, to see what we say. Write what we've not known how to say, by adopting method, a mystery to solve. To write lines to clearly explain the depths or shallows of Chaz's remark. Tiny net can catch a whole life? We give slippery words significant shape? Your head, hair, and thin legs are shapes shared with your mother. Sharp words that you say echo her. A passion through life for clothes and cleaning, for puzzles to solve. She would compete and score top mark. She was stuck in the past. You're not. That's plain. Though truths about teeth could be explained, a counter-argument starts to take shape. Your father also left his mark. His suspicious nose for truth or lies, say. Instincts for fakes made masks dissolve. He saw into people, understood life. Bill could bring a story to life. Character, humour, he saw it all plain. Crises easily he'd resolve. His stories all had an elegant shape. An eye for do, an ear for say. Channel your dad and grave your mark. Does life itself forge its own shape? Can we ever pass plain parents' roles, say? Eschew resolve, no magic mark. Grand design. You stay in bed and write, while I get up and worry about this poem. Last year we went to Port Douglas and wrote a lot. Thailand too. Poems were written on parchment. You wrote a book of recipes. Your stories took shape. Is there a grand design? I read a book about Larkin. He no longer fears and frets. His life is no longer built on shame, embarrassment, and guilt. After life's fitful fever, he sleeps, and his poems live on. Lucky him. Is there a grand design? You stand close to cut my hair. The scissors' delicious chomp leaves grey and black on the floor. So intimate, so decisive. You choose my clothes, you give me shape. Without you, I would merely look like something designed by Frankenstein. Saving money in the pandemic. Stay in bed, saving money. Clean teeth, saving money. Solve puzzles, saving money. Cancel car and health insurance, saving money. Self-isolation, saving money. Social distance, saving money. No movies, just Netflix, saving money. Switch off light, saving money. Fill cheap petrol, saving money. Exercise, saving money. Healthy food, saving money. Laugh a lot, saving money. Don't play golf, saving money. Cut down drinking, saving money. Walk, saving money. Meditate. Lost positives. Words seemingly used only in a negative sense, such as inert, unkempt, and inebriated, prompt the question, what has happened to the positive form? Did ert, kempt, and ebriated once exist? Were they used to mean lively, tidy, and sober? I was alerted to this quirk of the English language by a colleague, a maths teacher. When I gave a speech at his retirement, I included an attempt at some verses incorporating lost positives. In class he is both ept and ert, more or less kempt in his clean check shirt. His jokes make you laugh, but it can be a strain. Retirement beckons. He must be pecunious. However, the project was abandoned at this point. Such language is difficult for an audience to follow. As well as that, I was running out of inspiration. There is not a huge number of such words, and some apparent lost positives are not the genuine species. Using cheveled, for example, was a complete mistake. It is not the opposite of dishevelled. Nor, strictly, is gruntled the opposite or positive for disgruntled. But P.G. Wodehouse used it as such cleverly and humorously in The Code of the Worcesters, published in 1938. We all know what disgruntled means, but back in 1500, to disgruntle as a verb meant to grunt intensively, a rare meaning of dis, and repetitively. The obsolete suffix le adds this characteristic. Because dis usually means not, disgruntled looks like a negative, and Wodehouse's back formation is easily appreciated. Gruntled thus found its way into the Oxford English Dictionary. Nonplussed looks like a good target for positive hunters, but alas, plussed in the sense of understanding, knowing, has never existed. More disturbingly, nonplussed, meaning not disturbed or affected, virtually the opposite of its regular meaning, perplexed, has crept into common usage. It has even been spotted in reputable journals such as The Times and the New York Times. Examples of such usage in print persuade the highest authorities, such as the Oxford English Dictionary, that this is a legitimate meaning. So, we get stuck with a word that can mean its opposite. The most perfect example of this is cleave, which most commonly means cut or divide, but also has another meaning, cling, be as one. The latter meaning is found in traditional marriage services. A man and his wife should cleave together. Returning to the examples mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, I find further trouble. The origins of inert and inept relate to Latin negations of art and apt, both currently used, not lost. My verses do not seem to contain many actual positives. However, kempt is a definite qualifier. It existed in Old English, equating to combed, but was rarely found in writing after 1500, while the negative unkempt became more widely used. Were people more scruffy? Who knows? Kempt is also making a comeback via the whimsical back formation we saw in gruntled. Couth has a similar history. So I did find at least 2 lost positives, and pecunious, meaning wealthy, was used positively by William Langland, the 14th century poet. So that is another genuine example, not widely used in current times. With inane, we come up empty. It is derived from a Latin word meaning empty. It is not a negative. There is a Scots dialect word, ain, meaning one, the number, and that, I think, is no relation. Then there are the troubles with ebriation. Just when you thought it could mean sober, it actually means drunk. The prefix is an intensifier here, not a negative. This is a problem with English words. They sometimes mean the opposite of what you think, which can be the source of humour. Try looking at John Cleese's Headmaster, podcast 34, where he exploits the apparent negative meaning of invaluable. Have a laugh and appreciate the wonderful, eclectic, flexible, creative, not always consistent, organic being that is the English language. The Cook Monument in Edinburgh Gardens. You turn into Rose Street, a gentle slope down. City towers are handed gold by the risen sun as you cross the crescent named for Prince Alfred, Victoria's son. At the entrance to Edinburgh Gardens, a monument stands, an image in brass, a familiar face and famous, bewigged, firm lips, serious, looking to larboard. James Cook, explorer. The recent damage, face smeared with white paint, white supremacist scrawled on the path, and "Fuck off, Cook," cleaned off. His sturdy boat, the Endeavour, has gone. Of course, the ravens croak on grass they share with miners, the Indian sort. What'll you do? Magpies yodel. Sparrows are rarely, if ever, seen. Dogs gambol, leap, and tousle each other. Owners, quiet and patiently proud, stand, green bags discreetly clutched. Property prices are on the rise. COVID's under control. Van Goghian energy runs from roots up the trunks of the elms, through branches and leaves, to the twig-touching fresh morning air. For 36 years you've walked in this park. Your father, like Cook's, was a Scot who came by boat to NZ. Cook was on the money there, a mountain man, a straight man. At school you learned this. Cook discovered New Zealand, and later Australia. In a house on Queen's Wharf in Auckland sits a huge contemplative silver Cook. He reflects the constellations surrounding him there. This is no mausoleum. Cook lives on, here in his own state house. Once you lived in such a house too. He is not dead. No. Stabbed he was by Hawaiians, who boiled his flesh, releasing the British bones. But no, he cannot be quickly crossed off. Captain Cook's quiddity's ubiquitous. He's islands, he's towns, he's a university even. All is connected, says Arthur, as he plugs you in to the microcurrent's power to heal. Now you're here at Maloney's Beach, looking out at, named by Cook, Bateman's Bay. Did he see that silver the morning delivers, that cliff over there on this glittering sea? Feel sudden wind whipping in from the south? Nothing diverted his mapping and naming? Mapping and naming and claiming? Pushing some cloth on some pole into earth, invoking a king that made Britons this land? How strange. How's that? Isn't that a bit crook? Cook was no crook. He was fair to his men, his judgment unclouded by class. He believed in the science, a skeely skipper, sure. No mutiny brewed under his firm rule. But still it is true, Cook took Australia, this land where you walk in freedom and ease. As always, lawyers performed their slick tricks. You feed on a stolen fish, a bone sticks. Tinnitus 1. Because I shot a starting pistol bang beside my ear, incessantly cicadas scrape like bad violinists, a skull school orchestra persisting sans skillfulness. Tinnitus 2. Train strains to turn to Russell Station. Steel wheels scream against rails. Strong silver creature strains, seeks a straight way to ease its pain extreme. Child. Kneel on the floor with the knees together. Let the buttocks rest down on the heels. Lengthen upward through the spine. On an out-breath, tip forward from the pelvis. Fold the upper body over so that the heart rests on top of the thighs and the forehead rests on the floor. Extend the arms back beside the body, backs of the hands on the floor beside the feet, fingers curled softly. Let the upper back broaden. Tension drains away over the shoulders, down the arms, out of the body. Elbows are relaxed completely. Any tension in the neck melts away. The lower back relaxes and softens. The gaze is inward. The eyes are closed. The child is calm. Drowning. Eliot's river was a strong brown god, but the river that ran through the valley where I lived fell free and cold and ran clear from the Tararuas through Kaitoki down by Moonshine, finding ways for water to spread into the sea, silting into plains or dashing over rocks, washing grey stones white. It was a clever god and clean. Though this river gave civilizing gravel for roads and walls, engorgement of moisture spilt from the mountains provoked the quickening soil in the valley to fecundity. Potatoes, parsnips, pumpkins, cauliflower, tomatoes, cabbages, lettuces, peas, leeks and beans, beetroot and onions flourished in my father's alluvial garden. Our neighbours, the Haddies, their son, my friend, took me out for a swim in the river. I never could swim. A skinny, pale boy, I clung to a log near the bank, shivered in cold water. But the bright sun was high when the god of the river ripped my grip from the log and tossed me to fast-flowing, far-from-shore cunning currents, and dunked me, till I drunk enough to drown. My body drifted down, and with my foot I touched the bottom, stopped struggling, drifted, faced my fate, felt a strange relaxation. The stones were very warm on my chest as that big man, my neighbour, lay me face down. He lifted my feet to let the river run out of me. Still on the stones I lay. Geoffrey. Love is blind, it has often been said. And then there's blood, another loaf of bread. We lie in parallel beds. It's late on Sunday morning. Peace Rest, no church for us. Our dinner's brought in soon. Idleness envelops us. Peace, rest, a most luxurious silence. But our hearts are cruelly startled by the sudden thump and thunderous wash of our Father's vicious hosing torrent hard against the windows of our dreams. As a hen gathers her brood under her wings, Mum held you to her skirt to shut out life's stings. Down the narrow wooden stairs I ran to Lambton Quay to buy a chocolate fish. For you would not stop crying, would not, and a chocolate fish my cure. I ran into a milk bar, bought the fish, and dashed back up the stairs to Spencer Digby's studio. But even my fish your tears could not abate. Yet somehow, there, in the photo, a smile and no tears. Warning. Our father served his sperm-filled spasm, our mother's ovum received, and thus we were conceived. Our sister too, but this is about me and you. When you were small, your words came out strange. Things big were huge. You called yourself Guffy. But as you grew, you increased your range. For the first time, we're sharing a room. We lie in the dark. A sonorous voice, a booming American preacher, speaks from your bed. Jesus said, he says, in Luke chapter 13, "You foul spirit of rheumatoid arthritis, my brother's a healer. Release." You learned your lines from a plastic disc that lobbed into our letterbox. This was our starless, inscrutable moment. You taught me to watch the telly through scenes from provincial life. We watched golf, the big three, where Gary, you noted, said Mr. Longhurst, while Arnie and Jack called him Henry. And Pete and Dud and bloody Greta Garbo had us laughing so loud, Dad thumped on the wall and shouted harsh whispered pleadings to, "Hey, keep it down in there." Your banter with Reg was better than mine. You communed with a headafin, giggled with wriggles. You captained your team with humour and care. Oh, we're not, like your brother, superior. What the dead had no speech for when living, they can tell you being dead. Dad's digging, Mum's making. Our blood says, do good. Our father's hard work, his friendly engagement, our mother's fastidious aesthetic attention. A taxi pulled up outside our door. Mum brought a white bundle. It was June 54. Ballad of Andrew. When Andrew was a little boy, to study nature was his wish. Butterflies and animals, and birds and rivers and fish. His other passion was for food, and later he's a cook. Knew nutmeg, mustard, sage, and mint before he'd read a book. While he was an innocent lad, 'twas Asian exploration that saw him come home spectre thin and seek out education. Andrew's approach to life is this: I'll do it if I can. And once upon a Java beach he saved a drowning man. Next, at the Uni of La Trobe, he worked for his degree. With honours passed. Along the way, he hitched up with Sally. Like Adam and Eve in the garden, they were tempted by the fruit. They worked like slaves at Wiremu till it was time to shoot. All creatures of the canine breed, or dogs as some would say, have held a place in Andrew's heart and do so till this day. His faithful dog, called Tiger, was philoprogenitive. Just look around and you can see his progeny still live. Now Lola's such a handsome beast, her eye can make you melt, and Buttons leaps into your lap, a presence deeply felt. Now they're lodged in Bundalong, and Andrew teaches school. Sally's swift rise through Moira Shire shows she was born to rule. When he's afloat on the river, he feels like he's a god. His line he dangles overboard. He's caught a Murray cod. Now his latest craze is cycling. His bike is specialized. He's looking very trim and fit because he's exercised. Andrew was there when my mum died. The bath he got me in. Steam is round me on all sides. Here's Andrew with a gin.
Villanelle. A good marriage is one in which each partner appoints the other to be the guardian of their solitude, and thus they show each other the greatest possible trust. A merging of two people is an impossibility, and where it seems to exist, it is a hemming in, a mutual consent that robs one or both parties of their fullest freedom and development. But once the realization is accepted that even between the closest people, infinite distances exist, a marvelous living side by side can grow up for them if they succeed in loving the expanse between them, which gives them the possibility of always seeing each other as a whole and before an immense sky. Rainer Maria Rilke. We will not tie that knot so crude. A wedding makes a public face. We strive to guard our solitude. It's not a case of whim or mood. We need to give each other space. We will not tie that knot so crude. Jokes at a wedding can be lewd. True marriage needs a private place. We strive to guard our solitude. A wedding day leaves years to brood. Let's grant each other special grace. We will not tie that knot so crude. A cup of tea that's freshly brewed. A book whose mystery we trace. We strive to guard our solitude. Solving crosswords cleverly clued. We step by step our own staircase. We will not tie that knot so crude. We strive to guard our solitude.
Cars. My mother, Gwen, and her identical twin sister, Glad, looked exactly the same. They were short, slim. In later life, Glad grew a little plumper, with olive complexions and curly black hair. Legend has it they once swapped boyfriends for a night and weren't found out. They wrote long weekly letters to each other, always beginning, "My dearest Glad, my dearest Gwen." Both talked a lot. Their voices were the same. They had the same high standards of cleanliness. They cried easily, and even thought the same. They once sent each other, the parcels crossing in the mail, the identical birthday present, an emerald green slip. When Glad died of heart disease at 75, my mother's appearance at the funeral caused people to burst into tears. My mother died, also of heart disease, at 85. One of the reasons for the additional 10 years could have been that our family never owned a car. We did a lot of walking, cycling, catching buses and trains, and getting a lift from someone with a car. Wally Nelson, the school caretaker, Dad worked with him in Wally's gardening business in the weekends, once drove us to Days Bay, about 10 kilometres, for our Christmas holidays. My father cycled to work at the ICI factory in Seaview, about 7k, and back after overtime when we lived in Dyer Street. The Hutt Valley was windy. Into the wind, this was a tough ride. Everyone else owned a car. Even the Forsyths along the street, Everett was a friend my age, had a car. There were 7 kids in their family, and when we went to the beach, Everett and I went in the boot. When I was about 22, I started to take lessons in driving. I had 6 lessons in Auckland and still couldn't drive. The instructor was a big, heavy man. The car would sink a little as he got in, and a whiff of old bacon drifted my way. He would just repeat the same instructions. Clutch in, handbrake off, clutch out, without looking at me, or even as if he was actually speaking to anyone, or anything, except perhaps the car. But I could never get it right. The car always stalled. Next, I remember lessons in Lower Hutt with a more sympathetic teacher. He explained that the clutch had to be released slowly, that there were sets of cogs fitting together. At last, I could make the car move. But there were other skills involved. When I had gained some competence on the flat near my home in Lower Hutt, Gavin took me up to Korokora, Belmont, above Petone, for some hill starts. There was no fence on the outside of the road going down, just a steep drop. The car had dual control. That is, there was a brake on the instructor's side. Gavin reacted quickly enough to stop more than half a wheel going over. "Can I get on your side?" he asked as he lit a cigarette. After many lessons, I was ready to go for my licence. The adjudicator reminded me of the Auckland instructor, bulky and uncommunicative, mercifully without the body odour problem, but ominous nevertheless. As we set out from the Lower Hutt Town Hall, I performed perfect stop signals at the intersections and did not stall as we crept over to High Street. A Highland pipe band was coming the other way, bagpipes and drums. I was flummoxed. I stopped while they passed. Soon we were headed for the dreaded Belmont Hill. I avoided going over the edge, but my nerves were aflame. I did manage a hill start on the 3rd attempt. My U-turn, however, was alphabetically flawed, more of an O. Nevertheless, we made it back to the town hall, and I thought maybe that would be enough to give me my licence. As we got out, the adjudicator said something weird. "You've got 4 paws." Was I a dog? Or some other quadruped? Canid or felid or mustelid or rodent? No, that should have read POORS, P-O-O-R-S, on some scale that went excellent, very good, good, satisfactory, poor, like primary school reports. Except on those, I would get mostly X and very good. I had failed. This setback didn't stop me driving from Auckland down to Wellington. The car, a Morris Oxford, I think, developed a problem. It stalled without any assistance from me. From somewhere I had learned that a bit of jiggling of the stirrer in the carburettor fixed it. And it did, if only temporarily. When it stalled right in the centre of the railway lines at Mackay's Crossing, the scene of a number of fatal accidents, I was under the bonnet jiggling with extreme alacrity. Did I mention that Mary was with me? We had been married in the school holidays,
and we're returning to Wellington to resume our jobs, she as a librarian and I as a teacher. As an omen for our marriage, this journey was not a good one. The weather here in Port Douglas is fine, warm, comfortable, a little moist. That puts a glow on the skin. It's also clean. The cars are clean. The toilet paper's pristine. The beach is so clean. People exercise there. We do. So healthy. No sign of fatty fast food is seen. People are friendly. How are yous going? When you step out, the cars stop. The only grit is the sand. The only sting is the jellyfish. The only bite is the croc. For I will consider my wife Elizabeth, with apologies to Christopher Smart. For at the first glance of the glory of God in the east, she worships in her way. For this is done by bending her body, Wonder Woman, warrior, fingertips charged. For she also immerses herself in the ocean in the afternoon. For she returns to her bed and wrestles with the word. For she masters the word by writing as she mines her memory. For her memory retains every tiny imperfection. For her nose is that of a bloodhound. For her eye notes the finest details. For she is blessed with both innocence and wisdom. For she senses filth wherever it lurks. For her sense of beauty is implicit. For she is capable of entering the lives of others. For she can render a scene with precise perfection. For she leaves her scrumpled snot rags situated handily. For she is good to think on if a man would express himself neatly. Your Liz's cuz, in August born, just 2 days apart. There are some years between, but, well, that's a start. You both hae Scottish traits, I knew. You bear the Craig-type gene. You share the birth sign Virgo too. Hard-working, neat and clean. Discriminating, fussy-een, is what some folks would say. But let's put all of that aside. Let's celebrate today. Let's celebrate you, Heather Craig, a woman of great skill. Who else could fix her cuz's gig on RNZ with Kimmy Hill? She has a few grave health concerns. Some people would kill to explain. The sort who go on at length in your face. But Heather does not complain. Composure in facing one's pain is a virtue rare and true. The fortitude of not making a fuss about yourself, Heather, that's you. You're all about other people, of course, and here you really do shine. Your social nets, both far and wide, enhanced at time. No, it should have been at times. Enhanced at times by wine. Your hubby's Doug, that wondrous man. He wanted to wed, and you said yes. He knows his way round the universe. He's your personal GPS. We've all landed here in Port D, without that being planned. So the birthday celebration now is doubly grand. You're conductor of an orchestra. That's the image I see now. Step up to the front on your birthday. Step up to applause and bow. Port Douglas Pantoum 1. The long descent begun. That fucking ticking clock. The infiltrating sand. Little lines above your lip. That fucking ticking clock. the palm's mesmeric motion, little lines above your lip. In foam are perfect spheres, the palm's mesmeric motion, the wind chimes tinkling scrape, the foam's perfected spheres, the ocean's luscious lurch, the wind chimes tinkling scrape, the infiltrating sand, the ocean's luscious lurch, the long descent begun. Coupladecades Couplets. You're 20, you're grown up, we're all proud of you. We know there's no limit to what you can do. You stay out all night, do things that are bad, but you always come home to your mum and your dad. We can all be changed by a change of place. You went to Vancouver, came back and said grace. You sabotaged Baz's spellings fun class. But in Year 12 exams, hey, you kicked ass. You're always prepared to give it a go, rowing or parties or off to the snow. Your room is a mess, pairs of socks you can't find, but your essays show an orderly mind. Now Liam is gone, he's sadly missed, but Alice can't claim she's never been kissed. You're stretching yourself, your growth never ends, but first come always your family and friends. The human animal. If you think of yourself as an animal, aren't you surprised at how clever you are? Aren't you amazed at the way you behave? How creative you are, how amusing for an animal. On the balcony of our apartment. On the balcony of our apartment, palms, like horses before a race, or judges hearing a case. They curve greenly, feel the air, whisper Hosanna, take infinite care. Willows are not weeping, do not despair. They simply stand by water and let down their long, long hair. Wisdom from the Yoga Bible, or Lines to Lengthen Your Life. Standing teaches you about firm grounding. Folding yourself in a forward bend enables you to listen to your heart with a quiet mind. Twisting around gives you another perspective. Extending backward into the unknown is uplifting. It enables you to confront fears. Inverting yourself lets you experience steadiness of body and mind and a new perspective. Gazing enables focus of your energy. Breathing increases your vitality and mental focus and expands consciousness. Relaxing teaches you to let go, to heal and re-energize. Venus Bay. Gulls glide, turn and ride the blue air, or hang still at ease in their element. A white bird hovers, wings outstretched, the air it knows. Waves rise, curl, crash and foam like petticoats up the sand. We wonder if the tide is coming in or going out, when I see a dog with no legs thrashing its way towards the sea. No, not a dog, it's a seal. Flippers propelling a black slippery torso across the sand and into the waves, back to its element. Waiting for the poem. We're terribly grateful for work we can do, for tidying up and wiping down. We're terribly polite, so British, you know, sitting on layers of historical fact. Then a poem arrives, but it's wearing no clothes. It's huge, it's grotesque, it has a long nose. I point to the door, it trudges away. The poem itself fails to arrive. I wait. I expect it will arrive like a guest, uninvited, who won't ever leave. But I don't mind. Who keeps me up late? But do I care? Drinks the place dry? Smashes some furniture? But no. The poem itself scampers like a mouse across the kitchen floor, small and scared, and disappears. My muse says, make an appointment. That's what a painter would do. Ask him to come and sit. Have a chat. Make some sketches. Take a photo or two. Work up a prototype. That's how to do it. Didn't you just have your portrait painted? Did you learn nothing? The Unlearned Self. Perhaps by caring and not caring, but yes, by sitting still, I unlearned myself by sitting for my portrait. That strange inaction, a being passive, a nothing doing. While Miklosh leaps around the easel, he darts, he dances, he looks and looks and looks and looks, and dabs or daubs the canvas, I presume. I can't see, and he won't show. For more than 60 years he's learned the craft of this art. The language of paint he silently speaks. Paint is opaque, it is dense, it is paint. Yet these hands are real, are mine, I now see. These veins are outstanding, just as they are. The folds in my shirt, light and shade, make real. The edge of the easel asks us to see that this is all made. It's a man and his paint. But that look on my face says, I'm here, look at me. But also, you see, he is not here as well. Away some elsewhere, lost boy and lost man, visionary fool. That unlearned self is alive in the paint. Port Douglas Pantoum 2. A coconut falls like death or like birth. Palm trees and masts, tall and reverent, stand. Bush turkeys busily scratch at the earth. Low swoop the swallows to skim o'er the sand. Palm trees and masts, tall and reverent, stand. White timber houses have clean iron roofs. Low swoop the swallows to skim o'er the sand. Stone baked by Laurent are the best of the loaves. White timber houses have clean iron roofs. Firm fingers are planted like mangrove roots. Stone baked by Laurent are the best of the loaves. The Lady Douglas paddles past and toots. Firm fingers are planted like mangrove roots. Wee-loo, curlews wail in the night. The Lady Douglas paddles past and toots. Walkers inverted, the weirdest sight. Wee-loo, curlews wail in the night. Bush turkeys busily scratch at the earth. Walkers inverted, the weirdest sight. A coconut falls like death or like birth. Jack Taylor. The dark was descending. That is what I remember. Jack Taylor coming down the alleyway, walking home from tennis in his cream shorts, shirt and pullover, carrying his racket. Dad called out the window, "Did you win?" Earlier that afternoon, in bright sunlight at the Dyer Street Tennis Club, Jack had been playing Staff, who had been beating him. Jack was the top of the ladder. He was always top of the ladder. Some of the players were crowded round the court, saying quietly, "Come on, Staff, you can do it, Staff," as Staff steadily chipped away at Jack's game and took the first set. I was just a junior player, but I had played doubles against Jack. He was a cunning player. He would play at the net, dart to the centre, creating a gap down the line. But when you hit the ball there, he darted back and volleyed it away. Jack was smart. He was competitive. He was a winner. But that afternoon, he was sweating. He was struggling. He looked like a loser. Jack lived down the alleyway from us. We lived in Dyer Street. He lived in Thornycroft Avenue. He was a short, stocky man. The most important thing about Jack was that he was an All Black. He played fullback against the 1937 Springboks. Now he was in rugby administration and a selector for Wellington. His sons went to my school. The eldest one was John. He smashed a tennis ball through the window of their house. This seemed to be nothing unusual. The second son, Ken, had the habit of walking along the street, turning back all the time. He was also good at sports. Margaret, the youngest, was the girlfriend of an older boy. It ended badly. Jack's wife was Nan. She was always smiling and patient. Jack, however, was a hypochondriac. He always worried about his health. I overheard this. He died at 62, but Nan lived on a long time after. When my father called out the window, Jack did not speak. He nodded, slightly raised his racket, and moved on into the darkness. Dylan Thomas wrote only one poem. Dylan Thomas wrote only one poem about love. It was about war. Ted Hughes wrote some honest and caring lyrics to Sylvia, but she was dead. They made stakes for each other, he said. But they did study their charts, anxious over fate. And we too know ours. Your moon on my ascendant sees you trimming my hair, dressing me up and down. But despite occasional querulousness, we don't have their edge. They're scratching and biting. No, nothing like that. It's more the making of marmalade, a delicious dinner and a leftover lunch, a walk for a movie or music or play, or sharing a reading, positioning a picture, a sculpture on a shelf, tea and toast with a huge new sky. You make our house a place of space and light, and we're more famous five than fighting couple. At night our heads hit the pillow, retired but happy. Funerals. I was 16 before I went to a funeral. At Nainai College, one of the classrooms, room 113, was known as Siberia. It had no heating. The room above had heating, and holes had been cut in the floor, but the heat refused to disobey the laws of physics. Room 113 was used for French lessons. You could see there was a new teacher in there, wearing an overcoat, as we moved into the winter term. Knowing what I later learned about schools, timetables, and allocations of rooms, it was a certainty that the newest teacher would get the worst room. As there was no assembly hall at the college in those days, 1963, we lined up in our form groups outside in the quadrangle. The uniform for boys was shorts, rows of blue knees in the cold air, as Mr. Johnson reminded us to place refuse in the receptacles provided. He read Corinthians chapter 13, emphasizing, doth not behave itself unseemly. And we recited the Lord's Prayer with him for ever and ever. Amen. Miss Fauchet was the new teacher. She was actually French. I was never in her class, for Miss Lucy Brown was always my French teacher. Once we discovered that Miss Brown had no control over us, we stopped learning French. Now I regret this. To me, Miss Fauchet was an unknown figure, a middle-aged woman with frizzy hair in a coat standing in front of a class in the coldest room in the school. Mr. Devlin, our English teacher, wore big dark-rimmed glasses on his narrow, serious face. He told us that Miss Fauchet had died. It was July. It was cold and wet. Then he said that the school was organising her funeral. Actually, he was organising it. I guess, as a Catholic, he felt responsible. No one else was taking responsibility. She had no relatives, possibly no friends. She'd only been in New Zealand for a few months. Then we were told that the prefects would be involved. I was a prefect. I would be a pallbearer. There was a full Catholic funeral mass, a seemingly endless ritual, the priest with a sort of shaker thing, shaking holy water and incense on the coffin. The rumour was that Miss Fauchet had suicided, so strictly she wasn't entitled to this. Suicide was not a crime, abolished in New Zealand in 1893, but attempted suicide was, until 1961. But I didn't know that then. I just thought that it was all very weird, superstitious, unreal. We solemnly carried the coffin out of the church to the hearse. It was raining at Titus Cemetery. There was a special machine that lowered the coffin into the deep rectangular hole in the ground. The priest muttered words, dust to dust. As the coffin was lowered, Mr. Devlin threw a clod of clay into the grave. That seemed real. My first funeral was over. Less than a month later, another teacher died. Prefects again attended the funeral, but not as pallbearers. Winiata Smiler was a respected Maori elder, a big, serious man, only 46. Teria Smiler was a girl at school, a bit younger than me. There were 6 other kids in the family. The funeral was held on a bright, sunny day. Many Maori relatives were present. A tall, thin boy wearing a suit and white socks walked past the grave. The grass around the grave was very green, damp and sparkling in the winter sun. I was getting bored by the many long speeches. Then, as in the funeral described above, the coffin began its descent. Immediately, a group of women kneeling by the grave began waving their arms, shouting, screaming, screeching, "Win! Don't go! Come back! No! No!" Sobbing and wailing such as I had never heard. I know now that this is called keening, and it is a ritual, but I can still hear them. That was my second funeral. On the grass near the library. Now look with care. One there, one there. No, 3. The eastern curlew rests, or kneels, or stands, so still. A stone, a sphinx. Its browns it blends to frame itself, a tree beneath a tree. The pelican must boast the hugest bill. The peacock flaunts its glittering tail so proud. The crow, a glistening black, cries, "Crack!" too loud. The cocky, yellow-crested, squawks so shrill. At 4 a.m. you wake to hear, "Wheeloo, wheeloo," the strangest sound a bird can make, a wail released of timeless grief, of ache. O curlew, modest, shyest creature, you.
Oh,
Wait.
bugger. Oh, no.